Welcome. Welcome to the nap, where we have been doing some updates. We have been having some sound issues. As if you tried to watch a show yesterday, at the very beginning, the music was way too loud. You would not have been able to hear me whatsoever. All to say, just welcome to the nap, where we call it the no answer period, where we cover the question period at quarter after the hour, 45 minutes from now, which is a squishy time because, Parliament runs on its own time, and it's all according to the speaker how they're running the house. But no later than supposed to be, usually a little later, doesn't matter. What we do in the meantime is we fill the gap. We fill the gap with the nap, where we cover a lot of other issues that have been happening in Canada, some related to what is happening in our parliament, but everything related to what is happening with us here in Canada. So before we get to the next big story, we have to always cover the ongoing big story that's been going on in Canada, which is the ostrich situation out in BC. And over the past day, more MPs have started to actually become vocal and say something. Although we are still waiting for one particular MP just to say something. Anything at all would be nice. If you're watching us on Rumble, please give us a follow. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. If you're following us on X, thank you. We are broadcasting on all three platforms. Now, we've been having some issues with our Rumble account, apparently. A lot of our videos have been disappearing. As a matter of fact, all the streams for the past couple of weeks have just become inaccessible. Rumble support has been contacted. Also, a lot of videos from both our channels have just been vanishing, leaving nothing but an empty shell with a date, not even a thumbnail. It'll be interesting to find out what has been happening here on Rumble. I usually thought that was a pretty stable platform. Must be something going on. So let us get to the first story while we set ourselves up here. Here we are. So first, here's a post by Bob Zimmer. Who's Bob Zimmer? Bob Zimmer is a member of Parliament. Let's find out where he is in Parliament. And there we go. Thank you. Current Conservative, and this is where he sits in the House of Commons. Right there. And he has a current role. He's from BC, so no wonder he's speaking out about it. He's on the Standing Committee for Indigenous and Northern Affairs. Oh, interesting, because the cull of the ostriches was stopped by a sudden intervention by members of our native community who said, hey, you're on unceded territory. You can't do what you want on our land. And he's also part of these parliamentary associations and interparliamentary groups of these associations here. So what did Bob say? The Honorable Bob Zimmerman said, Mark Carney, why won't you listen to the experts in the agricultural community on the issue of culling 400 ostriches on the Universal Ostrich Farm? Livelihoods depend on their ability to raise and maintain these ostriches. The Liberal government failed to explain why this cull is necessary or why it won't retest. Well, to be fair, they never tested the flock. They only tested 2 dead carcasses. Semantics. It must show Canadians why these ostriches pose a health and safety risk to humans and livestock that justify the cull. Well, we've heard a lot of calls from the Conservatives and many other people in our society that the Liberals must do this, must answer. They never do. There is no mechanism within our government to force anyone in the government to give an answer to anything. They can just refuse. They can outright refuse, and they can run out the clock. If you're bringing them into a committee, eventually it's the only things that actually get any responses are legal. And then, of course, what do they do with legal? Well, then they use the taxpayer dollars to fight you, right? So they do something illegal. You have to fight them in court. Then they use your money, just like they're doing right now, after having been told that the enactment of the Emergencies Act was illegal. They immediately fought it, again, using our tax dollars. Wasting. This is all they do. With the stay issued by the Supreme Court of Canada, which we know is not permanent, it's still being fought. We call on a Liberal government to ensure CFIA is following its procedures, which they are not. As I pointed out in my small video, we should get to it prior to question period starting. They are not following the procedures. That's just it. They're doing whatever the hell they want. They're breaking the law. We've explained yesterday, well, crappy video. You can't go watch it on Rumble. You can see it on the other platform. They've been terrorizing the flock with drones. You can't do that as a citizen legally. You can't terrorize farm animals with helicopters, which they were also doing. I should know this. One of my very first posting in the Royal Canadian Air Force was 427 Tactical Helicopter Squadron, and I remember one of our Kiowa pilots, a small light observation helicopters that we have, we call them Loach Flight. He got in big doo-doo for flying really low over turkey farms, and he thought it was funny. He was flying down. He could say, "Oh, you can see the flock just spreading in front of me." And what he didn't realize is that it was a no-fly zone. And over the years, these no-fly zones would be mentioned in the map in the operations room, and the helicopter flyers knew exactly where they shouldn't be going. Thing is, though, this was an exchange pilot. I'm not going to say what country he was from, so he wasn't quite, in tune with our rules at the time. Now, remember, this is the early '90s. Things have changed since then. But just to point out the fact that when it comes to dealing with this, they don't have a clue with what they are doing. Now, let's move on to the next story. Here's the right blend that on the screen. So Creighton's right added a little bit of information that I found out this morning because this I didn't know, right? We knew that they were terrorizing the family. We knew they were flying helicopters around them. We knew they were trespassing, right? We know that some person clad in black tried to run into one of the owner's homes with a gas can and punch the owner in the face. It's all caught on tape and run away, almost like they were trying to commit arson. Um, and we know that the power has been cut off, right? And now, apparently, um, the RCMP have been doing some other as buggery.
It appears that the RCMP and the CFIA are not even listening to the Supreme Court because they've kept up their work. They should be standing down right now, getting off private property, get off that farm. But still, they're putting up blue fencing. And yesterday, of course, they put hay bales all around because they're trying to hide their dirty work. They don't want the world to see this. They've cut the wires. Katie talks about this. They have cut the wires to their internet, to their cameras. They're trying to disturb their Starlink, which is of course what you probably have to use in that rural area.
Do you realize? Do you see what they're doing? This this is how our federal police force, more than a platoon of them, sent in to harass and intimidate these farmers, are doing, right? Breaking law after law after law. And I'm going to mention it again like I did yesterday before I realized all my streams are suddenly taken down. The RCMP are known for breaking the law. They have a long history of breaking the law. I believe there was an incident, was it the '70s or the '80s, where they were involved with setting off some explosives to try to use either pin it on somebody else or part of a thing that they were doing to get involved with gangs, or either way, they got in trouble. And it wasn't the first time. Next time, they got a lot of attention to them during the Red River flood when they were using a gun registration list at the time that we had been told had been destroyed because, again, it was stuff like this always starts with the liberals, right? They want to grab your guns, so they start a registry list, and the conservatives came in and they said, get rid of this. RCMP kept it. And then they started going around from house to house that had been abandoned during the flood, booting the doors in, trespassing for no reason whatsoever, because they thought there might be some guns in there. Now, they did go in and steal some property. What came of that? I don't know. But apparently, it plays again, and we're seeing it right now, what they've been doing the last week. The RCMP have been breaking the law. And the only person held them accountable is a minister who's also a liberal. What is going on in our country? We can see it right in front of our faces. Now, let's move on to the next topic here. Anita Anand, my least favorite MP on the liberal side, because of her mandate while she was Minister of National Defense, coercing members of the Canadian Armed Forces to take the experimental messenger RNA gene therapy rebranded as a vaccine for COVID, take it or be released. So she released 10% of the armed forces because they wouldn't take the jab. And the ones that took it, the ones that got sick, she abandoned them. She abandoned duty of care. Yes, these are the people that you elected to run your government. Now here she is. Canada continues to stand with the people of Haiti as they face immense political security and humanitarian challenges, right? Willy-nilly, every day they're handing out money. Now this was, what was this, a couple of days ago? Was this yesterday? Yes, it was yesterday, right? So every day they have to put something out to make somebody upset because they're looking at this. Another $60 million out the door. We have Canadians starving. Every day it's something like this, right? Well, people are noticing and people are posting it. Now there is a definition of treason in Canada, and it's very specific. But in many cases, the way the word treason is bandied about, especially on social media, is because people feel like they have been abandoned by their government for a supranational organization or state, right? They're looking at their values and ethics. They're looking at what's happening in their country, and they're seeing the government act against their best interests in everything that they do. And every time they ask them, they refuse to answer. Ergo, welcome to the nap. So here's Mario Zelaya once again saying, reminder, we have no budget. Yeah, really? Well, Canada, you bloody voted for this. You had 10 years of fiscal irresponsibility. You had no budget before the election. He promised you a budget. Actually, no, he said no budget. He had to be pushed into having a budget. And then he kept pushing the date forward. Now we know why the budget's going to be in November, right? Because he's got a few MPs there in his house that, well, their pensions come due in October. Like the Hans Gruber of climate change, who's in charge of Canadian culture right now. His pensions come due. I think Bill Blair is another one. So these old cronies, these old liberals there, they got to get their 6 years in so they can get their full pension. And then after that to put out the budget. Because if all the parties vote against the budget as a confidence vote, this kicks the government out. So they are afraid of that. But I'm not holding hope for that. I'm not holding hope for that at all, because with all the bluster that the Bloc Québécois continually says in Parliament, especially with the constitutional crisis that Sean Fraser has created by trying to get rid of the notwithstanding clause ability for Quebec to use and all the provinces to use, because Ottawa wants full authoritarian control over all the provinces, over everything, because that's everything that their policies are putting in is pushing Canada towards this, for them to have centralized control over everything. And even with this, even with them threatening what little sovereignty they have within Confederation, they still vote with the Liberals on the last votes. So, it's all theatrics at times in Parliament when you see them say things and do things. And in some cases, they're very honest that they would like to do things. They don't understand why the other party votes all against it. Well, it's because in these cases here, regardless of what they're saying, they are all far left organizations. The Liberals, the Bloc Québécois, the Green Party, and of course, the National Democrat Party of Communism, the NDP, who apparently have no understanding of where money comes from. I don't think a single NDP person has ever had their own personal business, successful personal business that didn't need subsidies to survive. So what does Mario say? We have no budget. 1 in 4 Canadians are struggling to eat. We will have one of the biggest deficits in history. Well, no, we will have the biggest deficit in history. There's no around it. I Canada's never, percentage-wise, never been in this amount. And we told you ahead of time when you let the Liberals in that they were going to spend like drunken sailors on meth. And that's exactly what they're doing. But we're one of the biggest donors in the world. That's right. We keep putting stuff on the credit card, and we're not even feeding our own people. Who needs food when happy thoughts will feed our soul? This is treason. Here we have, look, Development Canada, one of the largest donors to the humanitarian response in Palestine, where we know 90% of the aid that gets there is all absconded with by the terrorist organizations that are there, whether it's Hamas or any one of the other Islamic terrorist organizations that run rampant in that area. And the people there get very little. Most people don't understand that geographically, Gaza has more billionaires per square kilometers than any other place on the planet. Now, mind you, those billionaires are living in Qatar when they're not, being taken out by a smart missile coming in to take out their apartment. But yeah, how do you have so many billionaires in such a small amount of land? That's because of this. We have far left lunatics giving away our treasury over to terrorists and recognizing them. I don't know. I don't know. Either the elbows up crowd that voted for this agree with this, which makes it even more disturbing. But I'm just going to assume that most of them are just too bloody ignorant to want to know the truth. Let's move on to our next story. Ah, yes. So yesterday, or sorry, the day before, a bill was introduced, and I did a short video on it, which we'll play right after this. Now, I'd like you to watch this press conference here, and just a bit of our intro, and then we'll go to the press questions.
Well, good morning, everyone. Today I had the pleasure of introducing my private member's bill known as the Ending Sentence Reductions for Sexual Predators Act. This bill seeks to amend the criminal code to require courts to impose consecutive sentences rather than concurrent ones when it comes to individuals convicted of sexual offenses. In plain terms, sexual predators will no longer be able to stack their crimes and walk away with a reduced sentence. Each crime will carry its own penalty, and each victim will receive the recognition that they deserve. For over a decade, liberal justice policies have increasingly favored criminals, undermining the safety and dignity of victims and communities alike. Nowhere is this more painfully evident than in the cases of sexual assault. Sexual violence is one of the most devastating violations a person can suffer, stripping away their dignity, their safety, and their trust. Yet multiple sexual assaults are often treated as only one offense, thus minimizing harm, weakening deterrence, and eroding public trust. Since 2015, sexual assaults have increased nearly 75%. Folks, let that sink in for a moment. 75%. And offenses against children by 120%. Liberal reforms have repeatedly prioritized repeat offenders, sending the wrong message that protecting predators matters more than protecting Canadians. This practice is wrong, and it must end. Sexual predators should never, never receive reduced sentences. That's right. Let me say it again. Never should they receive a reduced sentence.
You have to ask yourself, why are the Liberals going out of their way to make it easy for criminals to operate in Canada? Right? What are they doing? Why are they doing this? It's it's almost as if they're acting like a criminal organization themselves. Now, let's see if we can get to the questions here.
Of those that have been sexually assaulted, and it minimizes the. He did that, colleague Kevin. Thus far, I do not have firm commitment from them. Unfortunately, my colleague Kevin Lamrou today in the House of Commons, when I introduced my bill, I believe politicized this and went on the attack against me. Unfortunately, when he
And you will see that in my video. I explained it. You can see it.
Did that, it actually robs from the voices of those that have been sexually assaulted, and it minimizes the crimes that have been committed against them. It makes light of it.
Because the Liberals don't want to know that they turn our communities into crime-ridden hellholes. Now they're all not all like that, but it's spreading. It's spreading more and more every day. In the communities where it's really bad, and I've been covering this on the show every day, somebody else is like, and it's just a fraction of what's been happening, right? This is not the Canada we grew up in. This is not even the Canada of 2015. If you're not locking your car doors at night, if you don't have cameras all around your house, if you don't lock every single door and start thinking about putting extra bolts and bars on your doors right now and having something by your bedside, or maybe you need a large dog, because that's what it's coming to in Canada. Although if you got a dog, I don't know how you're going to feed it because you can barely afford to feed yourself.
And I find that disturbing, and I believe many Canadians do as well.
Can you talk about the systemic problems with the way the justice system handles cases of sexual assault? We've heard this from victims and advocates over the years, but what have you heard in your research and putting together this bill about what the issues are and what needs to be done to solve them?
Well, certainly there are many folks who hesitate coming forward and going through the justice system because they rightfully perceive that criminals are put first, that sentences are often reduced for them. When you
There was a woman that was called before Parliament. The first time she showed up, the Liberals bickered so much during that committee meeting, and this was during the previous government, that that person was so upset that they had to leave. They left the committee, never got to speak. Now they brought them back subsequently, but that person there, he sexually assaulted by her partner. Her partner's been released, been terrorizing her. She had to leave the bloody country. She had to leave Canada. This is the level of insanity that the Liberals have brought to Canada. And this is with the small, instead of just, repealing all the damage, which they can't do because they're in opposition, all they can do is bring forward a bill like this and try to bring more public information
you
so that
have
they can wake
multiple
the hell up.
sexual assault victims, often only one penalty is paid. Well, that means that the voices of those other victims didn't matter in that case. Justice wasn't granted to them. But yet they went through the lengthy process of telling their story and probably retelling their story and perhaps even retelling their story in order to seek justice. To victimize and re-victimize victims in that type of system, and then not even to dish out the right sentence that that perpetrator deserves, is absolutely ludicrous.
That's right.
I'd like to ask about the gun buyback program, if I may.
So here you have a press conference specifically for this issue. And she's had one question specific to the bill.
Minister yesterday had to, kind of walk back his comments that were leaked. What do you make of the fact that he'll be announcing this afternoon a program which he believes that only exists for political reasons?
I'm confused as to how that question relates to the bill that I've brought forward today, which advocates.
The people that are sitting there in a press gallery asking questions are handpicked. The only people that are allowed to be in the press gallery have to belong to the QCOJ, the Quality Canadian Organization of Journalism. QJOC? We'll get to it after. If they don't belong to that organization, you will never get selected to be in the press gallery. This is an entire thing that's been created by the Liberals to decide who gets to be in there. So everyone who's asking those questions are biased, super biased on a Liberal side. And that's something that most Canadians have no idea is happening on a daily basis.
Advocates for victims of sexual assault.
It's
Perhaps
not
you could tie
related to
those
the bill.
two.
I want the conservative opinion on that.
Okay, thank you. I'll be focused on my bill here today.
Great.
I think Conservatives have been very clear that we will always stand up for law-abiding citizens. And right now, the Liberals are putting criminals ahead of them.
Exactly. That's right.
And in the buyback program, the Liberals are choosing to go after law-abiding citizens rather than the real perpetrators of gun crime. And if the Liberals want to take the safety of this country seriously, then they need to rethink the way that they're acting, and they need to make sure that they're going after the real perpetrators of crime.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's it. They're not going to ask any more questions. That's right. One question. That's how much the Liberals are desperate to try to keep the fact that they have been destroying the country and it's turning into a dumpster fire of nonstop crime mayhem with goons, goblins, and terror lords running around the streets doing mayhem. So let's get to that little video I was telling you about.
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
Mr. Speaker, for over a decade, Liberal justice policies have increasingly favored criminals, therefore undermining the safety and dignity of victims and communities alike. Nowhere is this more painfully evident than in the cases of sexual assault. Sexual violence is one of the most devastating violations a person can suffer. It strips away their dignity, their safety, and their trust. Yet multiple sexual assaults are often treated as if they are one offense, therefore minimizing harm, weakening deterrence, and eroding public trust. Since 2015, sexual assaults have increased nearly 75%, and offenses against children by 120%. Liberal reforms have repeatedly prioritized repeat offenders, sending the wrong message that protecting predators matters more than protecting Canadians.
Come on. From the parliamentary secretary to the government house leader.
This is what Rachel was talking about, right? He just interrupts her train of thought and decides, oh, it's not that bad. You know, people are getting raped because of our policies, which is exactly what is happening.
Mr. Speaker, you have commented in terms of brevity and introduction of private members' bills. We're finding that they're becoming more and more political. The statement that was just made is an excellent demonstration of that. I think we need to go back to the standing orders in providing comment on private members' bills and how they're supposed to be introduced.
Yes.
So the most political person in Parliament, it believes that all the politicians who are in politics involved politicking in Parliament or shouldn't be political when introducing bills. This guy is a complete.
Typically, I think we're aiming for interventions of about 60 seconds. When introducing a private member's bill, and the honourable member hadn't reached the 60-second mark, so she has a little bit of time, not much more. Well, that. So would the member like to conclude and continue? Yes, Yes, the honourable member for Kamloops, Thompson, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, that member politicizes just about everything. So this member should be able to start from the top. That was a deliberate attempt, in my view. She was not able to say what she needed to say to the Canadian public in one stream of thought. She should be entitled to start again. Thank you.
I'll give her a little more time, but not from the top. Please go ahead.
Mr. Speaker, my point is clear that for over a decade, Liberal justice policies have increasingly favored criminals and undermined the safety and dignity of victims and communities alike. The bill that I'm bringing forward today seeks to put victims ahead of criminals, which is where we need to land as a country. Liberal reforms have repeatedly prioritized repeat offenders, sending the wrong message that protecting predators matters more than protecting Canadians. And this practice is wrong, and it must end. My bill amends the criminal code to require courts to impose consecutive sentences rather than concurrent ones for sentences for sexual offenses. With my bill, each crime will carry its own penalty and each victim will receive the recognition they deserve. It's long overdue that we put victims ahead of criminals, and I hope I can count on all members of this place to agree with that.
Yeah.
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
This is what I believe because this is what they have done with every other vote in Parliament. The Liberal Party of Canada will never vote to protect Canadians from the predators their laws have unleashed. because to do so would be to admit failure. And liberals are incapable of self assessment, are incapable of self improvement. They only know one thing: onward, forward, more control, more authoritarianism, more totalitarianism, and more of your riches for them while you starve.
Mrs. Thomas, seconded by Mr. Caputo, moves that the bill be now read a first time and be printed. The motion is deemed adopted.
All right, let's move on to the next story here. So, of course, we know the F-35 fiasco is just a complete repeat of the EH-101, only worse. So, if people aren't familiar, back in the 1990s, a replacement for the Sea King had been once again looked into, but this time because the Sea King shared the same engine with the Voyager Labrador search and rescue helicopter, they decided maybe we should get a replacement fleet for both aircraft at the same time. So, of course, the number one choice for search and rescue had always been the Chinook to replace the existing tandem rotor helicopters. Tandem rotor platforms are far more stable in a search and rescue environment, and even though they are larger aircraft, they have smaller rotor diameters, which means they have less downward draft, which makes it a lot easier to rescue people, especially out of the water. Myself personally have been picked out of the water just by a twin Huey. I could barely breathe at the time, and I was a fit man in my young 30s, very as athletic as I needed to be to pass my PT test, I guess, swimming out in the water, getting picked up, and I could barely breathe. And it was a nice, calm, sunny day on the Ottawa River. I can just imagine somebody in the high seas with a large aircraft, a large rotor diameter coming over to drown the person in misty water being tabled around. No wonder you have to send down a SARTAC first in there to help them. It's insane. So anyway, of course, they chose not to get the Chinook, even though we had a third line facility up in Arnprior, just outside of Ottawa, that had been refurbishing our prior Chinooks that could still be doing it for Boeing, had a lot of other contracts. They could have used this. No, no, they decided to go with an EH-1. Not only did they decide to go with an EH-101, they decided that they were not going to maintain this aircraft using what we call blue suit maintenance, which is, military personnel. Once again, they wanted to bring in alternate service delivery, which is civilians. That was what the progressive conservatives called it back then. Progressive conservatives, to me, were never conservatives. They were just red Tories. Liberals wearing a blue suit, really. And if you look at their policies, they were pretty close to that. So as a result, the AH-101 was selected to replace both the Sea King and a search and rescue helicopter. So what happened? Well, the Chrétien Liberals got elected and they canceled the AH-101, which is kind of a bad thing because this was part of a tri-country agreement between Italy, the UK, and Canada was going to take care of all the avionics portion. All along the East Coast, we had East Coast factories ready to ramp up, get a bunch of jobs in there, and the Liberals canceled it. They canceled it. We lost billions in investment, billions for canceling the contract, and billions, obviously, in the jobs that never materialized because this platform was going to be purchased regardless whether or not we did it because other countries are going to purchase it, which they did. They purchased them. In fact, I saw one of them almost throw some stones at me in Bosnia when it was landing there, and I was like, "Oh, there's one of those planes. I think I'll take a picture of it." Oh my God, look at the rotor wash. I was really just pinned up against a cargo container. I was there, my little camera, trying to take pictures, and stones are ringing by me. Ding, ding, ding. It's quite the rotor wash, I tell you. That's when we ended up picking under Chrétien. By now, it was not the Cadillac version. It was the Chevy, called the Cormorant. And of course, we didn't buy the same amount. We bought less, and we ended up spending more money. And the aircraft ended up being a bit of a disaster initially because it had a lot of issues that need to be resolved. But I don't have time to go into that right now. It's just basically to say the F-35 program is planning that same bloody thing. The Liberals came in, canceled the contract, and then they had to go back in and look at it again. So what the hell is the military supposed to do with that? So you have a bunch of um, engineers, especially all around when you go to purchase an aircraft. It's not just the aircraft, right? And they're going to talk about here in the committee. And I don't know how much time we'll be able to cover that. The it's it's the training of the personnel, and that's not just the pilots. We have to train the trainers. you have to train the technicians, right? And you just don't train the technicians, you have to train new technicians to be the teachers to train the future technicians. What usually happens in a situation like this is that as a contract evolves and as people get trained and they go back to their home units, or in this case, their home country, they already have a plan in place to use the established schoolhouses and they bring in the new training material that they need and the new training aids as well, which is, and that's all part of the program. And that's not just for the technicians, it's for the air crew as well, right? It should be all part and parcel. There's flight simulators, their classes, everything. And there's maintenance simulators as well. Whole advance, and it's part and parcel, and it comes into play. So you send your pilots down, you send your techs down, and then when your first plane hits the ground, you actually have techs there. You've actually finally got the tools in place. You've got a hangar facility, and you've got a schoolhouse, and most importantly, you have a connection to the manufacturer and their subject matter experts. As a matter of fact, they usually send a couple of subject matter experts to available for you to work with your technicians because it's a new airframe, especially when you go to fault isolation. All of these things. And it's a slow progress and it comes in, but there has to be an aircraft picked. You can't just, arbitrarily, hey, we'll pick this and we'll start playing in a couple of years. No, you have to have an established routine, have to have an established system. So that's why when Canada decided to fly the Model D Chinook to support the Griffin, which really wasn't designed to be in a war zone anyway, when we decided to send those to Afghanistan because we were losing too many of our comrades through IEDs, we had to get them off the ground. And of course, our escorts, the Griffins, did that by moving them in and out. And of course, we wanted heavy lift capability, so we went for the Chinook. And the Americans said, "You're crazy. It'll take you years before you can get people on the ground doing this." Well, no, because we already had an established system of trade authorizations and qualifications and people with experience on similar platforms, so that when we went ahead and got the aircraft, we were able to bring it up and running and operational in under a year. Now, we could do something similar if we had something in place, but the Liberals have spent the last 4 years destroying the Canadian Armed Forces. Like I mentioned before, that 20% of 10% of the personnel were purged because they wouldn't take the experimental injection. And on those that stayed behind, they've seen what has happened to their members who were injured by the vaccine and then abandoned. So that morale issue is not going away. And then on top of that, you've instituted struggle sessions to enforce your diversity, equity, inclusion, that bigoted franchise of victim oppressor narrative, whereby certain people are always going to be more equal than others. So, and that's, of course, that's not how the military works, right? The military works on you being competent, not incompetent, competent to rise to your level of incompetence, right? But you have to be competent. And in order to do that, you have to have a morale and a need to want to be competent. But if you're just treating everybody like crap when they come in, unless, of course, they're part of the identifiable special group, then the rest of them are going to say, what kind of institution is this? If I'm not going to be recognized for the level of work that I do and how good of a job that I do, if I can just be overridden because I'm a white straight guy, so therefore I go further down on the peg. Oh, and you're Christian too? Oh, down here, yeah, we got to. You're not getting those diversity points, right? So people think I'm kidding. This is what the Liberals have done to the public service, to the Canadian Armed Forces, and to the RCMP. Now let's listen to what's going on here with the F-35 contract.
The $7 billion Defense of Canada fighter infrastructure project, that's above and beyond that 27.7, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And I think the 27.7 estimate, it's important to note that's the National Defense's estimate. We believe another 5.5 billion should be added to that for some essential weapons and facility upgrades.
And if this, so if D&D, which by extension means your audit, was based on incomplete or not fulsome information, how much more do you think the cost overrun actually is?
well, at least 5.5 billion more than the 27.7. So we did try to sit back and say, what does make a CF35 fully operational and capable? And that's why we picked up certain other elements. Other things that we couldn't cost yet because the government hadn't costed those would have been the interim facilities that are.
Okay. So all they needed to do was go back and look at a successful purchase done prior, maybe under the Conservatives, and see how that whole thing planned out. And then you could look at the current purchase process happening, and you could have just said, well, why didn't he do this? Why is this missing? Why haven't they thought of this? So I would just say, maybe I know it's a flying weapon system, it's a fighter aircraft as opposed to a large lumbering cargo aircraft, but maybe look at the C-130J purchase process and how that entire training situation has been established and how it was successfully deployed. Or if you want to look at how to deploy something faster, like I said, look at the old Model D Chinook, but that was different, and armed forces couldn't do that right now. Now they've lost too much effectiveness and too many people with that experience, and there's probably not enough people there to give a poop anymore. Anyway, we're getting close. We're about 2 minutes away. Let's check on our question period. And opposition motion for food taxation. Well, this tells me that the question period is going to run late. Let's get on to the next story. Ah, yes. Let's look at some wind turbine demolition. Now, when I was in Afghanistan, I worked with somebody on my crew who worked for a company to sell and get these wind turbines installed. And in the end, he was suffering a moral injury because of the scam he was being involved in, and he had to leave because he's like, these things are all crap. They're never going to last. And of course, it's all proving true. And these things are built on a 20-year contract typically. As you can see, that the land right here that they're on, the entire pad, everything from construction to destruction is all amortized into the cost over 20 years, including the operational costs, the repairs, and of course it never covers everything that happens because there's always more damage that happens. And out of all that, and this is from 15 years ago, it would take 80% subsidies in order to make these work, right? At the current cost of power at that time, right? So their plan was always to increase the cost of power in order to have to decrease the amount of subsidies. So the more increased the cost of power, the less these subsidies would go down because eventually you'd be paying so much for power, like 4 or 5 times what you're paying now, that it would make windmills affordable. But they didn't realize is that as the cost of power was going up, it was more being driven by inflation as opposed to the projected cost. They wanted to increment themselves. So the subsidy cost just kept going up as well. So it's never caught up. That's why these things are a massive failure. And they're also a hazard to humanity. They give off very bad vibrations. Let's bring up they bring up very bad vibrations, these windmills. People don't understand. So the planet Earth vibrates at a specific frequency, and so does the sun. Now, as beings that live on this planet, biological entities, whether it's us, your family pet, your herd animal, the flying raptor in the sky, we are all exposed to these vibrations constantly, from birth to death. Even at the nucleic level in our biological system, everything's vibrating, right? Constantly vibrating. We know this, and we're vibrating in a sympathetic frequency with the Earth, which is natural for us. Now, there's been postulations that if ever we were removed from this frequency, it might make us very ill. And they have done some experiments to this effect where they were able to build a chamber that completely isolated whatever's in there from outside frequencies of all kinds. I mean, and we're talking some as low as they can get, even the longest long range frequencies. I mean, when you're talking about frequencies that are, meters wide in transmission, because people don't realize frequencies come in all sizes and all shapes. If you were to mark every frequency from the East Coast to the West Coast in the United States, and you just had like a fraction of an inch between both of them, it would span the entire state of the United States, something like that. So these windmills give off harmonics that are incompatible with other frequencies. Now, what do I know this? Well, having worked on helicopters, vibration analysis was a requirement, especially if you're going to start dealing with your components. And now it's gotten to so much of a science in vibration analysis, not only for helicopters, but every aircraft that works engines, because they'll have little piezoelectric pickups on them, or I don't know if they're using those, they're probably solid state ones that they're using as well. They monitor the frequencies, they monitor the frequencies that systems work at, and you can start telling when something is going to fail because you'll know a certain bearing operating the system is supposed to operate at a certain frequency. The certain sine wave starts to go off its solid peg. Ah, that part's starting to wear down. You know which one to replace, you know which one to look at. Well, what do you think happens in biology when you expose people to different frequencies? It's going to put you off because you're not vibrating at the right frequency. That's why when we get bombarded by solar radiation from the sun, and we get certain bursts of space weather, particle ejections from the sun, and then it hits our atmosphere, and some of it gets down, and they give out warnings. They said, well, you know, you might be feeling a little off today. People with heart issues might have to look at themselves because they might feel a little off. It's true. We are actually affected by these things. Now, you don't notice it when you're young, but the older you get, the more you start noticing these things when it comes to being affected. Now, when it comes to nature, they've known for a long time that bird song helps plants grow. Why is that? Birds, when they're chirping, they're in simpatico with the vibration of the planet they are living on. The plants that are growing, obviously, in simpatico with the natural vibration that we all live in. Now, when these harmonies are in simpatico with the birds and the plant is trying to grow, what's even better because the frequencies are harmonizing and helping each other, so the plants grow even better. Now, they said the closest thing to songbirds, if you're going to try to play some music instead of that for your plants, they say classical music, but even better than classical music apparently is classical jazz. Maybe because of all the simpatico and harmonization that happens in that as well. All that to say, vibrations from windmills being used for power are ridiculous. Now, the large ones are just super inefficient. And are we starting?
Mr. Speaker.
Nope, not yet. The windmills are highly inefficient. Now, they have newer technology. They have smaller ones. I'm not disrespecting all wind power because there are systems out there that actually work. On smaller scales, it can actually work rather well. Obviously, your parts are still going to wear out. You're still going to need to replace stuff. You still need to think of a maintenance schedule, right down to your battery source, because that's going to need maintenance as well. But on a large scale, like those giant windmills, what are they doing? Well, we know that they are known as bird choppers, but even worse than the bird chopping are the bats. They kill bats like there's no tomorrow. Because bats, when they start flying at night, they can't really see it. And what's happening is that they get too close to those blades when they fly by, and the concussion of the air that they get exposed to as they get close to the blade actually makes their lungs explode. So that's why if you go around these bird choppers, you'll see a lot of dead fauna all around the base. They're also an air traffic issue, and then when they do fail, they have a lot of petroleum oils and lubricants inside it to keep it going. So they have been known to catch fire. And then, of course, the end part is the disposal. Now, the blades, they're very toxic. Where are you going to dispose of those? They have windmill blades stacked up in the desert somewhere down south in the States. They don't know what to do with them. You can't put them in the ground. You can't burn them. They can't seem to dispose of them whatsoever. And then for the people that live around those windmills, well, they're going to get sick from the vibrations. And if they have wells in the area, well, the turbidity of this constant vibration of these giant structures slowly increases the contamination of the water because gravity naturally pulls all the water sources down. But if you start vibrating that soil, Well, it starts shaking up the water. And it shakes it up through all the different contaminated levels, and then all the water table starts to get contaminated because the gravity isn't doing its work anymore because the vibrations are forcing the systems up. So they're a bad idea all around. Now, of course, out in the east, they want to build them to supplement their power system. And what are they going to do? They're going to put them out in the water. Oh, yay. I can't wait to see the first repair being done out in the ocean on your giant windmill. And we talk about vibrations being bad in the soil. Imagine those vibrations going through the water. We know that fauna that lives in the water is very in tune with vibrations that go through the water, and we know it hurts them. If there's something wrong going there, we've seen whales beached, and we have a pretty good idea what happened. It had to be acoustic interference, some kind of vibrational interference, some kind of signal going through, disturbing them, because you don't have entire pods beaching themselves. It had to be caused. Anyway, windmills bad idea, bad investment. All they end up doing is costing more money. But they are giant virtue signaling billboards of the climate change scam, though. There's no getting away from that. Anybody who's been to Kingston, if you've seen Wolf Island out across the bay, what a sore sight that is. I was at 56, 70 windmills on that thing. It's a sorry sight for a historic area like Kingston to have to look across the bay and see those monstrosities. It really doesn't look much like a historic area anymore. Well, this guy was on the committee yesterday talking about CBC.
Grocery store, I can tell you that because I've hung around them in my city. And I just want the honorable member from New Brunswick talk about that, as families now are making some drastic decisions at the food store that may not be healthy for their entire family because of cost.
Well, member for Tobic Mactaquac.
Thanks to my honorable colleague for his great question and input, and it is so true. Canadians are facing really tough choices. They're facing some unbelievably difficult scenarios in their own households as they make decisions pertaining to their budgets, and that includes seniors and young people. And when
I started stocking up a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago, well, around when the COVIDity stupidity hit, because I knew eventually this would come. And you got to remember, in 2015, a can of coffee was $6. Now it's 24. Right? When you're looking at just some simple items, right? And you're thinking, oh, I need some peppercorns or I need some pepper so I can make my meal. And then you're looking at the cost of your meal, and the meat is 4 times the price it was 10 years ago. And then you're looking at your pepper, and I don't have enough money left over just to buy pepper. Well, when you're paying $5 for a bag of pepper, come on. And this guy.
Very quick search. I believe it was on October the 30th, 2013, where a speaker then made this indication, and it was talking about misleading information. And I'm cutting through it, so there have to be no doubt some more information looked into on the issue. And I quote what it is that the speaker at the time indicated. Considering the high threshold to prove that a member misled the House, the speaker concluded that there was no evidence that the Prime Minister in this case statements were deliberately misleading, that he deliberately provided incorrect information, that he believed his statements to be misleading, or that he intended them to be misleading. Accordingly, he ruled that there was no prima facie question of privilege. Now, I raise this issue because of my deep amount of respect for the Bank of Canada. All of us should respect its arm's length and its independence. Earlier today, we had the leader of the Conservative Party state, and I quote exactly what he said, quote, "Already the Bank of Canada is signaling that it is again doing away with its main mandate, which is to fight inflation. They've taken that mandate off of the main web page, where they used to describe their mission as low and stable inflation, and they've replaced it and continues on. Now, Mr. Speaker, again, it's the issue of the Bank of Canada that we're talking about and the website. If you take a look, and I'll ask if they have unanimous consent, I guess, or I could provide both in English and in French, the mandate letter. And the mandate, as posted on the website, Mr. Speaker, states, and I quote, monetary policy, the bank's monetary policy framework aims to keep inflation low, stable, and predictable.
The Parliamentary Secretary is now engaging in debate. He had referred to his previous speaker's ruling in years past. Is there a particular standing order or usual practice of the House that the Parliamentary Secretary can draw my attention to?
I could reference you to go to page 112 of Privileges and Immunities in Boss. Mr. Speaker,
Hey, Kevin,
as a reference,
maybe you should have volunteered to be the Speaker of the
I believe
House.
that would be the section for a matter of privilege, which requires notice to the Chair and the Speaker, and I have not received such notice at this time. So, I know, but sorry, I'm going to interrupt the Parliamentary Secretary. You cannot choose to do a point of order and a point of privilege, like both at the same time, and combine them together. You have to pick which one you are doing at the time you are rising. The Parliamentary Secretary was recognized on a point of order, and then clearly said it was maybe a point of privilege, and was trying to explain referring to the previous Speaker's ruling. That's why I let the Parliamentary Secretary continue. I have not heard what is the point of order at this time. So with that being said, Standing Order 10 then says, if I make a ruling the Chair, there is no further debate on the matter. I would invite the Parliamentary Secretary to look at it, but also invite the member, if he wishes, to rise at a later point on either a point of order or a point of privilege. I leave that to the member to decide, but I would resume debate at this time. Order. Alors.
Good job.
Reprise de débat. Le député de Côte-du-Sud, Rivière-du-Loup, Katascomique, Témiscouata.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Si vous me permettez, Monsieur le Président, c'est la première fois que je prends la parole depuis notre entrée en chambre cet automne.
All right, let's see if question period is started.
À tous les francophiles qui contribuent à
During our fight to NTB, our investment in the global fund.
Statements by members.
This liberal.
Nous célébrons la journée des Francs.
Would have added, all of which will.
He's a high-promising, low-delivering failure.
There we go.
The honourable member for Prescott Russell Cumberland.
Now let's get past this one.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill South.
First household debt promise. Building projects is unimagined. Just break.
Today to celebrate 1966 times Canada and there. Guns. Today's meeting is not.
Oral questions, questions orales, the honourable leader of the opposition.
Avec un autre voyage inutile et coûteux, le Premier ministre fuit les scandales, l'inflation, la criminalité et les problèmes liés au ministre de la Sécurité publique ici, chez nous. Monsieur le Président, ce ministre a perdu la trace de 600 criminels de l'étranger ici au Canada. Il a brisé la promesse libérale d'engager 1000 agents frontaliers et il avoue que son programme pour harceler les fermiers et chasseurs ne va pas protéger les Canadiens. À quand le Premier ministre va-t-il protéger les vies des Canadiens et congédier ce ministre?
C'est ça. L'honorable ministre des Finances.
Monsieur le Président, je remercie le leader pour sa question. Effectivement, le Premier ministre est à travers le monde pour bâtir des ponts, Monsieur le Président. Et oui, ce gouvernement-là, Monsieur le Président, va présenter un plan générationnel, un plan pour bâtir le Canada, un plan pour faire grandir le Canada, un plan pour créer des emplois partout au Canada. Au lieu de critiquer, Monsieur le Président, le leader conservateur devrait se lever et féliciter le Premier ministre qui est en train de bâtir des relations, bâtir un Canada plus fort. Monsieur le Président, de ce côté-ci de la Chambre, on va bâtir un avenir pour les Canadiens.
L'honorable chef de l'opposition.
The Prime Minister is on yet another costly and useless photo op tour to escape the inflation, criminality, housing price crisis, and of course the scandal around his public safety minister. That minister who lost track of 600 foreign criminals on our streets, broke the Liberal promise to hire 1,000 new border guards, and was caught on tape admitting that the Liberal plan to harass farmers and duck hunters has nothing to do with saving lives and everything to do with preserving the Prime Minister's political fortunes. Will the Prime Minister put Canadian lives first and fire this minister?
L'honorable ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, it's another day, but it's the same old conservative, Mr. Speaker. On this side of the House, we're about building the future. We're going to present a budget that's going to build this nation, Mr. Speaker. It's going to be a generational investment in our future. We're going to build a country. We're going to build jobs. We're going to create the opportunities for young people in this country. We're going to build the strongest economy in the G7. And we hope the Conservative will vote for this budget because it's about building our nation, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
I was just pausing on its own. It's not me.
Actually built this nation, and today is my mom's birthday. Thank you. And it reminded me that even when my school teacher parents were struggling, we always had delicious, nutritious meals, meat and potatoes on our plate, and we had to eat all the broccoli. But when I called her today for her birthday wishes, she said grocery prices are terrible. I didn't have the heart to tell her, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister's bait and switch is the culprit. Will the Prime Minister give my mother the ultimate birthday gift and end all Liberal taxes on groceries?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
I wish the member opposite's mother a happy birthday. But I'm also very sad to tell her that her son voted against the school nutrition program.
Because his mother would benefit from the school and nutritional
because when I was there
program?
and I spoke to teachers and volunteers and met with students, they talked about how this healthy nutrition break for their students helped those students reach the goal of careers like architect, teacher, engineer, tradesperson.
They just started this, and they're not providing
my
it.
mother, as a substitute teacher, sometimes taught math, and she would not be happy with the Parliamentary Budget Officer's report today, Mr. Speaker, which reveals that this Prime Minister is more expensive than even Justin Trudeau. The PBO reports that the deficit is now 2/3 higher than the one Trudeau left behind. Over the next 5 years, this Prime Minister will add an amazing $300 billion of additional inflationary debt, twice what Trudeau would have added, all of which will add to the cost of living for Canadians. How is it possible that any Prime Minister could have been more expensive than Trudeau?
L'Honorable Ministre des Finances.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by wishing the mother of the Leader of the Opposition happy birthday. And I'm sure that she's looking at the TV today, Mr. Speaker. Question. I have good news for his mother, Mr. Speaker. We cut our taxes, Mr. Speaker, along with 22 million Canadians. I don't know his mother, Mr. Speaker, but I know in her heart she must be proud of this Liberal government. That we cut taxes, that we're fighting for families, that we're going to build the country of the 21st century. Let's celebrate, Mr. Speaker.
These people are clowns.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I can confirm he definitely does not know my mother. In fact, my mother knew how to budget better than anyone. She could stretch a dollar farther. In fact, I think she should come in here as the finance... We sure wouldn't have a PBO report showing the government adding 1/3 of $1 trillion of extra deficits. We know that every single dollar this Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of hard-working Canadians. Why don't they know that?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Keeping on the theme of mothers, one thing I know about mothers is that every mother is certain that no child should go hungry. And so it is particularly disappointing to see the members opposite, many
The
of
school
them
lunch
I
break
know are
thing?
mothers as well, voting voting against the school nutrition program that is making sure that no matter a kid's circumstance, they've got the nutrition to learn and grow. Mr. Speaker, we'll always stand up for Canadian families on this side.
It's amazing how they keep celebrating the failure that parents can't feed their own kids.
Ma mère m'a toujours enseigné, c'est de garder les promesses faites. Le premier s'est promis de dépenser moins, mais aujourd'hui, le directeur parlementaire du budget a montré que ce premier ministre va dépenser 2 tiers de plus dans son déficit inflationniste. Un autre 300 milliards de dollars, un tiers d'1 billion de dollars de déficit qu'il va ajouter. C'est 2 fois plus élevé que Justin Trudeau. Ça va causer l'inflation et gonfler les prix. Pourquoi les Canadiens qui ne peuvent même pas nourrir leur famille doivent nourrir la dette de ce premier ministre irresponsable?
Bravo! On va avoir une réponse. This is no answer period.
Président, je voudrais encore parler. Si la mère du leader de l'opposition écoute, je voudrais pas lui dire, par contre, que le leader de l'opposition a voté contre le programme des garderies, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais surtout pas dire à sa mère qu'il va voter contre le plan dentaire canadien, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais pas dire à sa mère qu'il a voté contre.
Sometimes I just can't take his voice. I just have to shut him off sometimes. He's just too much.
L'honorable député de Saint-Jean.
Monsieur le Président, la Poste, c'est un service essentiel, mais la réforme de Poste Canada que vient d'annoncer le fédéral semble l'oublier complètement, oubliant du même coup des milliers de Québécois. Il y a des personnes aînées qui ont besoin de recevoir leur courrier à domicile, notamment hors des grands centres. Il y a des personnes en situation de handicap qui s'inquiètent aussi. Est-ce que le gouvernement peut garantir à tous les Québécois qui se sentent abandonnés aujourd'hui qu'ils continueront à recevoir les services à domicile qu'ils méritent?
Bravo! L'honorable ministre de la Transformation du gouvernement.
D'abord, merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président, et merci à ma collègue pour sa question. Je suis entièrement d'accord avec elle. Poste Canada est un service essentiel pour tous les Canadiens d'un bout à l'autre du pays. C'est pourquoi aujourd'hui, on va de l'avant avec des réformes qui sont nécessaires pour assurer une viabilité à long terme pour Poste Canada. Quant à sa question, alors qu'on lève le moratoire sur l'imposition de boîtes postales communautaires, Poste Canada a un service en place, un programme d'adaptation pour s'assurer que les Canadiens plus âgés ou avec des handicaps puissent avoir accès à leur courrier. On veut s'assurer que tous les Canadiens auront accès à leur courrier et que Poste Canada ait un avenir viable. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Well, you can pretty well guarantee if Canada Post isn't going to commit suicide through their own demands, the Liberals will finish them off.
Ottawa annonce aujourd'hui qu'il met fin au moratoire sur la fermeture de bureaux de poste ruraux, un recul de 30 ans. Sauf qu'en région éloignée, la population dépend des services de Poste Canada, notamment pour la livraison de médicaments. On ne peut absolument pas réduire l'offre de services en milieu rural alors que c'est souvent le seul service qui existe. Est-ce que le gouvernement va s'assurer que les Québécois des régions ne soient pas abandonnés?
L'honorable ministre de la Transformation du gouvernement.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La réponse courte, c'est oui. On va s'assurer que tous les Québécois, que tous les Canadiens en milieu rural, éloigné, dans les communautés autochtones, aient accès aux services de Poste Canada. C'est une priorité pour notre gouvernement. Et il faut savoir que le moratoire qu'on lève aujourd'hui a été créé dans les années 90, couvre 4000 emplacements, des emplacements qui étaient ruraux à l'époque, qui sont maintenant devenus des banlieues, parfois même des villes. C'est ces endroits-là qui sont visés, pas les communautés rurales et éloignées. Je veux rassurer ma collègue. Merci.
On n'est pas rassuré parce que vous utilisez toutes vos promesses.
Le président modernisé Poste Canada ne devrait pas équivaloir à abandonner les Québécois des régions, les personnes à mobilité réduite. Le ministre n'a pas consulté adéquatement les Québécois et arrive aujourd'hui avec ce qui ressemble à une réforme fédérale mur à mur qui ne tient pas compte des besoins spécifiques sur le terrain. Il doit s'assurer que les personnes à mobilité réduite continueront de recevoir aussi rapidement leur courrier chez elles. Et il doit garantir qu'il n'y aura aucune diminution de services en région. Est-ce qu'il prend l'engagement de le faire?
L'honorable ministre de la Transformation du gouvernement.
Absolument, Monsieur le Président. Je veux rappeler à ma collègue, en ce moment au Canada, c'est 77 % des Canadiens qui reçoivent leur courrier dans des boîtes postales communautaires. Il reste 4 millions d'adresses qu'on vise à transitionner vers des boîtes postales communautaires. Mais alors qu'on fait la transition, comme Poste Canada l'a fait par le passé, on va s'assurer que les Canadiens à mobilité réduite aient accès à un service pour s'assurer qu'ils aient accès à leur courrier s'ils ne sont pas capables de se rendre à une boîte postale communautaire. Mais je veux simplement rappeler, depuis 2018, Poste Canada a perdu 5 milliards en déficit accumulé. On a dû injecter 1 milliard. La société perd 10 millions par jour. Il est temps d'agir pour sauver Poste Canada. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
Well, the fact they said they're going to save it means they're going to kill it.
One thing in public, but admits the exact opposite in private. Most Canadians have their own word for it, but around here in this place, we just call them liberals. The public safety minister admits that his government's gun buyback is a politically motivated scam that just won't work. Those are his words. He's letting convicted criminals roam the streets and shoot up our neighborhoods so he can play politics and pretend that he's actually doing something about it. Everyone behind him is also wondering, when's he getting fired?
Yeah.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the people who are playing politics is the party opposite, Mr. Speaker. They're actually fundraising off of our buyback program. As you know, Mr. Speaker, this week I had the chance to launch the program in Cape Breton as a pilot. We look forward to its expansion across Canada. We look forward to Canadians surrendering their over 80,000 AR-15s that are in their possession. We need to take dangerous weapons off our streets, Mr. Speaker, and we will do everything we can to support Canadians in that effort.
You will voluntarily surrender.
That's a lot of bravado in here and the exact opposite when he thinks nobody is listening. That minister gets caught in a scandal of his own making, and it's so painful for everyone here to watch him pretend like everything's fine. He's going to go ahead and spend $750 million on a confiscation program that he admitted no one will participate in and that won't work. That's less cops on the streets, that's less scanners in the port, that's less money for a leaky border where the guns are actually coming in. So I have one question, and it's for the Prime Minister. Why is he keeping this guy around?
Yeah, way to go.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, we have a comprehensive plan to address guns. It starts with the buyback program that we launched this week, Mr. Speaker. It's about investing $1.3 billion at our borders to increase scanning capabilities as well as new tools for law enforcement, Mr. Speaker. It's about hiring 1,000 new CBSA and RCMP officers. It's about Bill C-2, Mr. Speaker, which is right here in the House right now. If the party opposite is serious about guns, they should support C-2 and get its passage to committee, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Ponoka-Didsbury.
In a leaked recording this week, the public safety minister told the truth and admitted his liberal gun grab is a failure. It won't improve public safety, it will be expensive, and it's politically motivated. Then on CTV's Power Play, he refuted his own words, saying that they were in jest. Taking people's property without consulting them isn't funny. Wasting $750 million for the sake of crass politics isn't funny. And demonizing vetted, tested, law-abiding Canadians isn't funny. The only funny thing here is that this minister still has his job. When will the Prime Minister fire him?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, law-abiding citizens abide by the law. We launched a program this week to support those who are law-abiding Canadians to be able to give their AR-15s and other prohibited weapons in order to obtain compensation, Mr. Speaker. It's a fair way to treat law-abiding citizens. It's about ensuring that our streets are safer. It is in line with the work that we're doing at the border with $1.3 billion in investments, Bill C-2, which is before the House today,
lies.
as well as adding another 1,000 CBSA and RCMP officers.
They had 10 years to add those officers. They didn't do it.
Well, senior Iranian government officials were banned from entering Canada in 2022 for gross human rights violations and state-sponsored terrorism. But in June, Border Services still had 66 open cases into Iranian officials right here in Canada. Now we know that the Minister of Public Safety has lost 600 foreign nationals with criminal records, and over 400 of those evading the government are convicted of serious criminality right here in Canada. The minister has one job: keep Canadians safe. When will the Prime Minister fire this incompetent public safety minister?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, last year, CBSA removed over 18,000 individuals who are ineligible to be in Canada. This year, we're on target to to remove over 20,000 people, Mr. Speaker. The work that our frontline border officers do is incredible, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank them for their work. We're going to be adding another 1,000 CBSA officers to ensure that our borders are even safer and more secure than ever, Mr. Speaker.
So I hope Canadians are paying attention. Again, right? He doesn't answer the question.
Mr. Speaker, it didn't take long for Canadians to see the public safety minister fail multiple times at his job. In just 4 months, we found out that he needed to recuse himself from certain discussions on border security. And he's playing politics with a firearm confiscation program that he admits won't work. Now he's lost 604 nationals with criminal records in Canada who were ordered to be deported. This public safety minister can't deliver public safety for Canadians. He's already at 3 strikes. How come he's not out? When will the Prime Minister fire this failed minister?
The Honourable Government Health Leader.
Monsieur le Président, nous avons eu les tragédies de la Mosquée de Québec, de Polytechnique, de Porte-à-Pic. We've had mass shootings in this country, and Canadians have told us very clearly that they want access to assault-style weapons of war to be limited. The one thing that has distinguished this party and that party over the
That
course
is a
of all of
complete
these
liberal
tragedies
narrative
is
created
our
by
willingness to put
goofballs
in
like
measures in
this.
place to limit assault weapons and their abject refusal to listen to Canadians and to reason on this issue. They need to listen to Canadians and get serious about assault rifles.
He bandies around the word assault like it means something. He has no idea what it means. They just put that label on a .22 rifle, called it an assault rifle, an assault shotgun. Let's ban those.
Canada a intercepté plus de 1500 véhicules volés l'an dernier au port de Montréal, signalant une hausse constante des vols liés au crime organisé international. Cette criminalité s'étend aussi au blanchiment d'argent issu de fraudes amoureuses qui ravagent la vie des Québécois. Le premier ministre justifie de garder le ministre de la Sécurité publique en poste alors qu'il ne comprend pas ce qui se passe au pays et sait que ces organisations criminelles sont soupçonnées par les services de renseignement de financer des activités terroristes et d'avoir des liens avec le Hezbollah. Est-ce que le premier ministre a le courage de le mettre dehors aujourd'hui?
L'honorable leader du gouvernement à la Chambre.
Monsieur le Président, le ministre de la Sécurité publique vient d'informer cette Chambre du nombre d'enlèvements de ce pays, justement, et il est évidemment aux commandes pour assurer notre sécurité nationale.
Oui, mais il n'y a
Sur
pas...
les armes type assaut. Les Canadiens ont été clairs. Suite à la Polytechnique,
Non,
suite
les Canadiens sont clairs
suite
quand
à
ils
la
parlent.
Mosquée de Québec, ils ne veulent pas voir ces fusils-là accessibles dans nos rues. Quand est-ce que les conservateurs vont écouter la raison, se joindre à nous pour limiter l'accès aux armes d'assaut au Canada?
What a goofball. Those rifles are not available on the street. They're available in locked
La
safes.
Chambre du gouvernement n'a rien compris de ma question. Je ne parlais pas des armes à feu. En passant, les armes qui ont été utilisées à Porte-à-Pic venaient des États-Unis, étaient illégales. Rien à voir avec ce qui se passe au pays. Parce que ma question parlait, c'est le crime organisé international qui agit dans le port de Montréal, qui agit dans la région de Montréal, avec des criminels qui financent le Hezbollah. Ça, c'est sous les yeux du ministre de la Sécurité publique qui ne fait absolument rien pour ça et qui ne comprend même pas ce qui se passe au pays. La question est simple. Est-ce que le premier ministre aura le courage de mettre le ministre de la Sécurité publique dehors maintenant?
So that's twice now, asking them, are you going to do something about Hezbollah using our ports in Canada to finance themselves?
Speaker, it's very clear that the numbers in terms of car thefts are down significantly across Canada, Mr. Speaker.
Car thefts have nothing to do with Hezbollah.
19% year over year. We've invested in the border at $1.3 billion. We've invested in new scanners. We've invested in new equipment that will ensure
That has nothing to do with Hezbollah.
Those items that are going out of the country are inspected more frequently, Mr. Speaker. We're investing in another 1,000 RCMP officers. We will ensure that the border is more secure than at any other time, Mr. Speaker.
Except you are not going to do anything about Hezbollah using our ports to finance
Le gouvernement
themselves.
du Québec a annoncé qu'il veut empêcher les Hells Angels d'afficher leurs couleurs. Mais Québec n'aurait pas besoin d'agir si le fédéral faisait son travail en interdisant les patchs dans le code criminel qui relève exclusivement du fédéral. Le Bloc québécois veut même déposer un projet de loi en ce sens en 2017. C-349. Tous les partis ont voté contre. Québec se retrouve donc encore obligé de faire le travail du fédéral parce qu'aucun parti ici n'a le courage d'en découdre avec le crime organisé. Le gouvernement va-t-il enfin prendre ses responsabilités et interdire le port d'emblèmes d'organisations?
L'honorable ministre de la Justice.
Monsieur le Président, avant de commencer, je veux remercier mon collègue pour la question. Comme le député savait très bien, nous avançons de nouveaux projets de loi pour protéger la communauté qui expérience la haine de notre communauté. This piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, includes the criminalization of the willful promotion of hatred using specific hate symbols. Of course, as the honourable member knows, the decisions as to which groups that are included are subjected to the terrorist organizations listed in the criminal code, which it does and should reflect the independent advice of the national security apparatus in this country. Thank you.
Député de Rivière-du-Nord.
Monsieur le Président, le projet de loi C9 du gouvernement veut interdire le port de la croix gammée. Il veut aussi interdire le port de symboles liés aux groupes inscrits à la liste d'entités terroristes. Mais il n'a pas le courage de faire exactement la même chose pour les groupes criminels tels que les Hells Angels. Les patchs des Hells représentent le crime organisé, le meurtre, la montée de la violence liée aux gangs qui inquiètent les Québécois. Il nous semble que c'est assez haineux comme symbole pour que les libéraux l'interdisent. Qu'attendent-ils pour agir?
L'honorable ministre de la Justice.
Monsieur le Président, ce projet de loi incluant spécifiquement les symboles qui engagé la promotion intentionnelle de la haine, incluant des symboles de les nazis et en même temps le symbole de les organismes terroristes. It's essential, Mr. Speaker, that the decisions as to which organizations are treated as terrorist organizations in this country are made independently by the national security apparatus. However, should the honourable member wish to put this to the parliamentarians through the committee process, he has something he can do: vote in support of this legislation, send to committee, and say his piece in front of all members.
The honourable member for Calgary East.
Justin Trudeau tried to make groceries the most expensive in Canadian history. This Prime Minister said, "Hold my champagne." In August, food inflation outpaced overall inflation by 84%. And now the Parliamentary Budget Officer said the deficit could soar to $70 billion. It's these liberal deficits that fuel the inflation tax that made grocery prices go up. Why is this Prime Minister so obsessed with making grocery prices more expensive than Justin Trudeau did?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, the school nutrition program is saving Canadian families on average $800 a year in food costs, Mr. Speaker, and that's just one example of the work that we've been doing to ensure that Canadians have an affordable quality of life. Mr. Speaker, the dental care plan in my riding is changing the lives of small business owners and artists who have gone for many years without dental care and who just for the very first time have been able to access affordable dental care. That's the kind of support that families expect, and that's what they get with a Liberal government.
And 70% of the claims they put through were denied. Big surprise that people thought they had dental care.
Show said he was going to haul in all the grocery store CEOs and tell them what was on his mind and say, "Hey, buddy, you better lower the grocery prices or else." Then he doubled the deficit, making inflation go up, making food prices soar, and sending 2 million Canadians into a food bank. Why doesn't this finance minister haul in the real inflation culprit, the guy that sits beside him, the so-called budget expert, tell him to stop ballooning the deficit so food prices can actually come down?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if they won't believe us, maybe they will believe an actual kid. A grade 7 kid actually said this: an investment in healthy school food is a good idea because the healthier the kids, the healthier the society.
I'm sure a kid said an investment in my food program. Yeah, no. The kid doesn't even know whose food's coming from. I'm sure he'd be a lot happier if his mom and dad could give him his own lunch instead of having to depend on the state. This is ridiculous. Quoting a 7-year-old in Parliament to support the destruction of Canada's economy while Canadians suffer, starve, and have to go to food banks.
I would like to hear what that 12-year-old had to say as well. So from the
He's
top,
a 7-year-old, buddy, not a 12-year-old.
Please.
Oh, sorry,
Colleagues,
grade 7, not
colleagues.
7-year-old.
A moment, Minister. I can't hear you.
Nobody wants to hear from the 12-year-old on a text to support a non-answer from a far-left parliamentarian.
From the top on that, so go ahead, please.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let's start with the voice of a child. Advocating for other children in this country. This is what this grade 7 Canadian young person said. An investment in healthy school food is a good idea because the healthier the kids, the healthier the society. School food matters to me because kids should be healthy. And you know what, Mr. Speaker, I'm so proud of that empathetic grade 7 student who knows that young people in school deserve the
Look at
best
this
chance of
communist
success.
pushing
It's more than I can say for
state-provided
these
food
conservatives who are actually
as
laughing at the compassion of children in our
it's
country.
not compassion. If the government has to provide you food, that's not compassion. That's desperation. That's a failed state.
The honourable member for Brandon Souris.
That minister is so out of touch because she doesn't understand that those kids still are hungry every evening and every weekend and every summer holiday because their parents can't afford to put food on the table because of this Liberal government's inflationary deficits that are driving up food costs 48% faster in Canada than in the United States since this Prime Minister took office. The Prime Minister asked to be judged by the cost at the grocery store, and we're well past Judgment Day. Money printing deficits plus record high food bank use plus Canadian skipping meals equal an F for this Liberal government. Will the Liberals vote for our Conservative motion to cut their inflationary taxes on food prices for Canadians today?
The honourable government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we just witnessed something pretty shocking in this House.
Yep.
We had first the finance critic for the Conservatives stand up and say we are creating bureaucracies rather than feeding children. Well, I would like him to come to the elementary school where I help serve breakfast to young kids and show him the yogurt and the orange slices and the eggs that are handed out to those children every day. And to this member, no, we won't vote for their motion. We are going to be busy over here putting in place supports for Canadians that he will vote against.
That's because you're a bunch of communists. We just told you outright, stop spending money we don't have so parents can feed their own children.
Les Canadiens le jugeraient selon le coût de l'épicerie. Le directeur parlementaire du budget a révélé que le déficit allait être le double de ce qui était promis il y a 6 mois. Le premier ministre globe-trotteur réalise-t-il que chaque dollar qu'il dépense vient de la poche des Canadiens et des Canadiennes? Le premier ministre se rend-il compte que la promesse rompue de doubler le déficit fait augmenter et exploser les prix de l'épicerie?
You know what I hate seeing is someone even older than me going through the grocery aisle and having to put food back because they can't afford it.
J'invite mon collègue
Maybe they can go to the schoolhouse and get a free meal from the government, right? If they can't afford food, they just show up at the schoolhouse and say, hey, we're here for the free food.
Du yogourt, des œufs, des gaufres. Des fois même, il pourrait inviter le député à aller voir l'impact sur le terrain et la capacité d'apprendre de nos jeunes au sein des écoles. Ça, c'est des appuis et de l'aide que souhaitent les Canadiens et non de la rhétorique conservatrice du libre marché.
Honorable député de Richmond-Athabasca.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai aucune leçon de prendre du leader. Je viens de mettre sur pied une aide alimentaire pour les écoles chez nous avec des amis. Alors, je pense que le leader peut le faire pour la leçon. Le premier ministre a dit aux Canadiens qu'il allait être jugé selon le coût de l'épicerie. Malheureusement pour lui, c'est un échec total. Le bœuf, 33% d'augmentation. Soupe, 26%. Café, 22%. Monsieur le Président, le premier ministre a échoué. Son équipe a échoué avec la même équipe libérale. Est-ce que le premier ministre peut faire un budget respectueux?
Now, is this where they tell them they got elected?
Le ministre des Finances va non seulement faire un budget respectueux, mais un budget générationnel qui va donner des occasions d'emploi et de croissance économique et bâtir ce grand et beau pays. J'invite le député, s'il tient à nourrir et s'il tient à l'alimentation scolaire au sein des écoles, de se lever, de défier son whip qu'il n'a probablement pas encore rencontré, qui va lui dire de voter contre l'aide à l'alimentation scolaire. Je l'invite à se lever pour les jeunes dans son comté et le mien et appuyer l'alimentation scolaire au Canada.
It's a waste of money. Don't spend our money. Spend less money. Reduce inflation. Food prices go down. People can afford to feed themselves.
Canadians across the country are preparing to mark the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation on September 30th. This is an opportunity for us all to commemorate
I'm
the
not.
history and
I don't know
legacy
anybody
of
who
residential
is.
schools, and to honor survivors and their families.
The only
Can
people who
Minister of
are
Crown
the
Indigenous Relations
states
share
and
with us
institutions
the
in this
importance
country.
of this day and how Canadians can do their part to address the legacy of the residential school system and advance reconciliation?
The Honourable Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thanks to my colleague for the great question and the great work in his riding. On the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation,
He's wearing
we honor
that,
the children who never returned home and
orange
stand with survivors,
T-shirt
their families,
symbol.
and communities living with the legacy of residential schools. In response to Call to Action number 80, this day was established as a federal statutory holiday in 2021. Since then, our government has supported hundreds of community events every September 30th, including 339 this Tuesday across the country. I encourage my colleagues and all Canadians to participate in ceremonies or events in their communities to reflect,
So this was a
remember,
cultural
and recommit to the
shaming
ongoing work of
exercise
reconciliation.
begun by the Liberals so that Canadians could start hating themselves instead of celebrating the nation. So we've been 10 years of misery under these Liberals, always finding something to find wrong about Canada,
to the deficit
to change it
and pushes the
in
price
their
of
totalitarian
food
image.
higher for Canadian families. In fact, the Parliamentary Budget Officer revealed the deficit will be higher than he promised just 6 months ago. Runaway deficits drive up the price of everything we buy. It's a tax on working families. The Prime Minister said we could judge him by the prices at the grocery store. When will the Prime Minister finally admit that this is another broken promise?
Well done.
Honourable Secretary of State.
Let's see, food lunch program, cut taxes, or we got elected.
Someone who has actually put together budgets in the private sector versus a Conservative leader who has never done it. I'm proud to stand with the government that's going to deliver a plan on November 4th to cut operational spending so we can invest more in our country, build our economy into the strongest economy in the G7. Mr. Speaker, that leader and that party opposite has fought against every affordable measure we have put forward. Shame on them, Mr. Speaker.
Shame on them for pointing out that we failed, making everything more expensive. Shame on them.
Regardless of the career of that member, the harsh reality is Newfoundland and Labrador families are struggling just to eat. Nearly 40% of children live in food-insecure households, and single-parent families experience a 56% food insecurity rate. That's the highest in the country. That's thousands of kids and parents depending on food banks just to get by. Meanwhile, food prices continue to climb. Does the Prime Minister understand his broken promises and skyrocketing deficits are making food unaffordable for all families?
She mentioned kids, so they're going to mention the lunch program again.
Minister of Fisheries and Oceans.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague in the opposition from Newfoundland and Labrador for the opportunity to celebrate a very successful fishery in Newfoundland and Labrador. Northern cod, increased quotas. I visited communities, spoke with harvesters, visited processors.
This is your answer
with plant
to
workers.
people not being able to feed themselves.
This is economic boost for rural Newfoundland and Labrador. And I'd like to invite the colleague from Long Range Mountains to work with this government to encourage young people to see the fisheries as a viable future. There is so much to celebrate.
The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, I hear it every day. The calls, the emails, the letters. We cannot afford food. The Daily Bread Food Bank expects 4 million people to visit. 4 million people. That's a lot of Canadians in despair. And today, the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed that the deficit will be double of Justin Trudeau. That is the reckless spending that drives up inflation and increases the food of everything we buy. And the Prime Minister himself said that he would be judged by the price at the grocery store. Well, he has failed, completely and undeniably. When will this Liberal government stop emptying the wallets of Canadians to cover for their failures?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Studies show that school food programs improve student health and mental health. They also improve learning outcomes, better grades in science, math, and reading. Mr. Speaker, those healthy meals in schools can also save a family up to $200 a month. That's a real
And
solution
that's
for
just kids having
affordability
healthy
and for
meals
health for
if their
Canadians,
parents
Mr.
could
Speaker.
provide it for
So
them,
why
but they
did the
can't
Conservatives,
because
when
you
they had
destroy the
chance to
economy.
vote for healthy school food, vote against it? And then why did the member from Calgary East just now talk down all those programs that are supporting tens of thousands of kids in Alberta and hundreds of thousands of kids right
Supporting
across Canada?
tens of thousands of people who can't make ends meet. It's great how they keep celebrating their failure.
After 10 years of this Liberal government, Canadians can't afford to feed themselves. Printing money has resulted in inflation tax, which has driven up the cost of food. The Liberals' industrial carbon tax has increased the cost of farming, which has driven up the cost of food. And food packaging tax installed by this Liberal government has also driven up the cost of food. Families are struggling, and the hardest hit among them are children. In Lethbridge, food bank use among kids is up 150% just in the last 4 years. 150%. Enough is enough. Will the Liberals support the Conservative motion to scrap the tax on food?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable member opposite for her question. It is clear that this government has consistently stood by and supported families. We know they need support, they have asked for it, and the results of the previous election show that the plan and the commitment to support families,
There we
in particular
go.
children as well,
Well, that's what
is
voted.
a
That's what they
strong
voted
record
for.
and a strong plan that we are delivering on. We have a national school food program. We have a national dental care program. We have a Canada
National
Child
dental
Benefit,
care program that
and I would
70% of the
encourage
people got
members
told
to
they
support
had to
us in
pay
making
for
that national
themselves
school
after
food
they thought it was
program
free.
permanent. Thank you.
You lied about your dental care program.
The member says that this Liberal government has stood by and supported families. Direct quote. I'd like her to tell that to Scott. Scott is in my riding. He has children and a wife. He works hard, but he finds it very difficult to make ends meet. We recently got off the phone, and he was telling me on that call that he is struggling to feed his family. And in fact, he and his wife are down to one meal a day in order to make sure that his kids get enough food and their bills can get paid. This is a hard-working family that isn't able to make it happen for them. They're struggling. What would this member have me tell Scott and his family?
Yes, be very careful what you say, member.
Children and Youth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have a number of supports for children, for families, including a national school food program, including a dental program, including the Canada Child Care Benefit. I would encourage the member to vote in favor and support these programs that do deliver meaningful supports to families across the country, not only in her riding, but in mine and in all of ours across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So that's what the member wants to be told, is that just vote for more communism.
How do they not
It'll be
understand
fine.
if they stopped taxing Canadians to death, you wouldn't need the program? After 10 years of the Liberal government's reckless spending, prices of groceries continue to rise. The PM said he'd be judged by the cost at the grocery store. Well, among Saskatchewan children, 35% live in food-insecure households. When will these Liberals scrap their industrial carbon tax, scrap their second carbon tax, scrap their food packaging taxes so Canadians can afford to feed their own kids?
Yeah, not every other people's
Secretary
kids.
of State for Rural Development.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Merci, Monsieur le Président. I just want to point out from the Saskatchewan perspective, Mr. Speaker, people are celebrating the hundreds of thousands of homes we're building for families across the country. That celebrates Saskatchewan as well. And then we have the lunch program, as indicated, and all the support for different types of family across this great country, Mr. Speaker. So again, Mr. Speaker, from the federal government perspective, we're going to be there for families, and that includes Saskatchewan.
So what I'm hearing is every Liberal MP is supporting the lunch school program for families. So I'm saying maybe all the families just need to go straight to school to get fed.
MP I've ever seen. He voted in favor of a gun buyback program so his people could not hunt on their own land, Mr. Speaker. So the fact that he got up and voted in favor of a gun buyback program, supports that program, and then the fact that there is 259% increase in food bank usage in Saskatchewan, despite them not having the ability to feed themselves, he wants to stand and take credit for Liberal programs. He should support Saskatchewan people and not his Liberal lapdogs.
The Honourable Secretary of State for
I think I hear somebody making lasso apso dog sounds.
Mr. Speaker, the member references the compensation program for firearms. Mr. Speaker, these firearms have been prohibited for the last several years. I want to thank the responsible gun owners that have stored these guns safely and now are waiting for a plan. And in this plan, they will be compensated.
No, they were waiting, hopefully, the last election that you evil buggers would be voted out of office to stop your communist takeover, and that the next government would have said, enough of the gun confiscation, you can take them back out of storage now, and go feed yourself by hunting for live food.
These types of weapons in Canada.
The honourable member for Hamilton East, Stony Creek.
Breaking news in a bombshell report from Canada's independent fiscal watchdog. The Liberal government deficits are exploding. This means even bigger pile of debt for Canadians and also means higher prices on everything. Grocery prices are already up 70% over target, but the Liberals' plan is just to add more fuel to the fire. Our debt is exploding, our economy is shrinking, and the government's cupboards are bare. Why is this Prime Minister going ahead with his crazy budget to double the deficit and send even more Canadians to food banks?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know where the Conservatives have been for the last 4 months, but we are laser focused on delivering affordability for Canadians. We've cut taxes for
They've been on the ground the last 4
Canadians.
months,
We cut the
listening
GST
to the
for
misery
first-time home
of
buyers.
Canadians
Interest rates are
that you've
down.
caused.
And through Build Canada Homes, we're going to build homes at a scale not seen since the Second World War. It's time for the Conservatives to cut the rhetoric. Get on board. Join us.
You just said rhetoric right there.
Not
seen since the Second World War. Cut the rhetoric.
Every dollar that this Liberal Prime Minister spends comes out of the pockets of hard-working Canadians. And never have they spent so much to achieve so little. The Liberals lit a pile of money on fire to give us record food bank usages and grocery store prices that are 40% higher than before. The budget watchdog says that the Liberal deficits will now be twice the size of Justin Trudeau's. Will the Liberals change course and vote for our Conservative motion to stop the Liberal taxes on food?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is building bridges internationally, and I have good news for Canadians. We just signed a generational trade agreement with Indonesia, the fourth largest country in the world. Over 275 million potential consumers, the fastest growing middle class that's looking to buy Canadian products, Mr. Speaker. This is another concrete example of how our international efforts are opening new doors for Canadian workers and businesses in communities across Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Just a little reminder to members, un petit rappel, là, il ne faut pas taper sur les pupitres parce que ça peut causer un accident acoustique pour les interprètes. L'honorable député des Pays d'en haut.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, j'ai entendu directement du Comité de la Défense nationale parler du travail remarquable accompli par les Forces armées canadiennes partout au Canada et en Europe. Puis j'ai eu la chance personnellement de le voir en direct à Petawawa hier. Alors que le Canada fait un investissement générationnel dans la défense nationale, est-ce que le ministre peut nous informer de la manière dont nous allons renforcer notre présence militaire au Canada et partout au monde?
Yes, please tell me how you're going to convince to get the troops in the boots.
Monsieur le Président, nous savons que nos partenaires souhaitent voir le Canada jouer un rôle beaucoup plus important sur la scène internationale. Hier, nous avons signé un nouvel accord avec l'Indonésie visant à renforcer la participation des forces armées canadiennes aux exercices militaires dans la région Indo-Pacifique. Cet accord profitera également à l'industrie canadienne et contribuera à la création d'emplois. Grâce à cet nouvel accord, on verra davantage les forces armées canadiennes à leur meilleur dans la région Indo-Pacifique, Monsieur le Président.
Bravo. The Honourable Member for Langley Township, Fraser Height.
The Prime Minister says to judge him by the cost of groceries. Well, the data is in and it's not looking so good for him. The Parliamentary Budget Office says that this Prime Minister's spending is going to outpace even Trudeau's reckless inflationary spending, driving up the cost of groceries. For seniors, Myrna from Langley says, I worked and planned for my retirement my entire life, and I was taking everything I have to live. So Myrna and many seniors want to know if this Prime Minister is going to stop eating their lunch with this never-ending cycle of inflationary spending and deficits.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Seniors.
Mr. Speaker, seniors who built this country should never have to choose between paying for groceries or heating their homes. I speak to
Well, that's what they're
seniors
doing.
at my home riding in Esquimalt, Saanich in British Columbia all the time, and they are proud of what this government is doing, that we've taken action that actually helps seniors in this country to age with dignity. We're cutting red tape. We're building homes faster. We're providing dental care for seniors that more than 2 million have already signed up for. On this
And then
side of the
70% of
House,
them
we have a
got
great
told
record.
they
On
couldn't
that side
have
of the
the
House,
service.
they have a record of pushing retirement age higher, cutting benefits, and leaving seniors behind. Over here, seniors can trust this government.
Yeah, they could trust you to increase the cost of living to the point where people can't live, which is what you were asked, and you didn't answer.
Canadians would judge them by the cost of the food at the grocery store. Because of liberal spending, the average 2 bags of groceries now cost $150. You used to be able to fill 2 carts for that. According to the Waterloo Regional Food Bank, in the first half of September alone, over 15,000 people accessed their services. When will this Prime Minister show some understanding and urgency instead of constant deflection and delay while increasing deficits?
The Liberals are screwing up because in the history of the planet, every fall and riot that's happened tearing down governments has been driven by
Our new government
hunger.
has focused on empowering northern and Arctic communities with Indigenous-led solutions that work in the north. For example, in Inuvialuit Country Food Plant is distributing harvested muskox, reindeer, fish, and berries so families can count on country food year-round. Also, the Harvester Support Program has backed over 5,500 harvesters with freezers, fuel, gear, and keeping local food flowing and shared. These stories will keep growing.
Yeah, but who's paying for that? It's not self-sustaining, is it, right? The government has to pay for that? The plan is to make it self-sustaining.
Le prix de l'épicerie explose. Et pour mieux comprendre le phénomène, j'ai appelé Simon Plante de Polyculture Plante à l'île d'Orléans, lauréat du prix des jeunes agriculteurs élites de l'année en 2024. Un gars qui connaît ça. Qu'est-ce qu'il me disait? Paperasserie étouffante, les nouvelles réglementations année après année, le coût de transport qui monte en flèche, la taxe carbone qui alourdit la facture. Le résultat, les producteurs et les familles en payent le prix. Est-ce que les libéraux vont appuyer notre plan, couper les taxes et la bureaucratie pour permettre la nourriture d'être abordable?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food.
No, they're not going to answer your question, and they're going to brag about
A couple
their...
weeks ago, I had the opportunity to tour Strathcona Imperial Oil Complex in Alberta. And I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, that what they're doing out there to transform canola seed into biofuel is unprecedented. One company in Canada, and they're working towards reducing GHG emissions, Mr. Speaker, and utilizing
let's throw in the GHG climate scam in there.
back to Canada, to our citizens, that is really effective in reducing GHG emissions in this country. Kudos to Imperial Oil.
Oh, so you're not going to do anything that he asked, right? You're just going to celebrate
Mr. Speaker, this week we mark
failure.
Gender Equality Week, a time meant to recognize the progress we've made and the work that still lies ahead. Will the Minister of Women and Gender Equality and the Secretary of State for Small Business and Tourism please speak to what our new government is doing to advance equality and create a more equitable and safe Canada for everyone?
The Honourable
Equitable
Minister.
equals communism.
Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable colleague for that question. This week is a time to reflect on our accomplishments and also the progress we have yet to make. Our government has implemented initiatives to help support women entrepreneurs. We implemented the National Action Plan to end gender-based violence.
Why is this even a ministerial position? Minister of Women and Gender Equality and Secretary of State, Small Business and Tourism. What? Like, everything about them has to be about a victim and an oppressor, and they have to put everything into little boxes, and it's just, and of course, every ministry they create is just a higher pay bump for these liberals.
violence, and we implemented pay equity legislation to level the playing field for women. Now, we recognize there's more work to do, and that is why our government will introduce this fall legislation that will ensure the safety of women so they can equally participate in society. Mr. Speaker, we understand on this side of the House that we cannot build the strongest economy in the G7 without the full and equal participation of women.
The Honourable
Women are afraid of getting raped in Canada on a regular basis now because of you, let alone thinking about getting a job.
Said Canadians would judge him by the cost at the grocery store. But after 10 years of the same Liberal government, Canadians cannot afford to eat because of taxes on food. Edmonton Food Bank use has been double in the last 5 years. Prices of sugar is up by 20%. Coffee is up by 22%. Grapes are up by 24%. This is because of Liberal taxes on food packaging and carbon taxes on fertilizers. Will the Liberals adopt Conservative motion and stop taxing on food?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, on November 4th, we're going to table a plan that's going to spend less in government operations so we can invest in our country. We're going to build and invest in nation-building projects. We're going to create and build the strongest economy in the G7. We believe in affordability. The party opposite doesn't. I ask them to cut the rhetoric, get on board, join with us. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Rosemont, la petite patrie.
Monsieur le Président, ça allait déjà pas bien, mais là, ça s'empire. En juillet, on a perdu 41 000 jobs. Au mois d'août, on a perdu 66 000 jobs. Chez les jeunes, le taux de chômage frôle les 15 %. Cet été, chez les étudiants, le taux de chômage était à 18 %. Avec la crise du logement et la crise climatique, on ne s'étonne pas que les jeunes aient perdu espoir en l'avenir. Quand est-ce que les libéraux vont enfin investir dans les énergies renouvelables et quand est-ce que ce gouvernement va se réveiller et créer des bons emplois verts et syndiqués? Bravo!
L'honorable leader du gouvernement à la Chambre.
Monsieur le Président, le député, c'était une longue liste. Évidemment, le chômage chez les jeunes, on va déposer un budget générationnel. Le député aura l'occasion de soutenir ce budget-là qui va créer des opportunités, des occasions d'emploi et d'abordabilité en logement et d'autres pour nos jeunes. Et pour ce qui est du soutien aux énergies renouvelables et aux technologies, évidemment, c'est ce qui caractérise ce gouvernement. On va continuer d'y investir. Le Canada va mener le monde entier en investissant dans les technologies renouvelables.
Très bien dit.
Le député de Rosemont, la petite patrie.
Il n'y a pas un jeune qui va être rassuré avec cette réponse-là. Monsieur le Président, le programme de rénovation domiciliaire est super populaire. Et avec raison, ça diminue les factures de chauffage pour les familles et c'est bon pour l'environnement. Les gens changent l'isolation, les portes, les fenêtres, installent des panneaux solaires, etc. Mais le 1er octobre, la semaine prochaine, il n'y a plus une scène dans le programme. Et que font les libéraux? Rien. Ils ne mettront pas d'argent. Tant pis pour l'environnement, tant pis pour les familles qui voulaient faire des rénaux, qui s'arrangent. Est-ce que les libéraux vont investir dans ce programme qui aide les familles?
The leader of the Communist NDP being really upset that the government's not giving out free money.
Monsieur le Président, ça me donne l'opportunité à parler de comment on travaille bien avec les provinces pour donner des ressources aux Canadiens qui veulent rénover leur maison et leur rendre plus plus faible carbone.
You know, when my father renovated his house, he didn't have any programs. We just renovated our houses on our own.
Pour les aider à faire ces rénovations sans payer un sou. Et maintenant, en Ontario, on aide pour les gens à faire ces rénovations aussi avec la province. On va travailler pour aider les Canadiens à chaque jour.
You're not helping us when you're spending money we don't have. Stop spending other people's money just to help out a few people.
To the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Micheál Martin, Taoiseach of Ireland.
I wonder if he's one of those politicians inundating his country with a massive amount of male migrants to replace their population. A lot of people have been upset in Ireland at what they've been doing there as well.
Join the Taoiseach and me in the Speaker's Salon, room 233S, immediately following question period for a reception in his honor. I don't know.
No points of order. So that is it.
I believe the we'll give it a moment, and we'll give it a moment. Where's the other speaker?
All right, that's it. Well, join us tomorrow, where we do the question period at an earlier time. I believe Friday's on. Well, it'll be broadcast. I think it's 12:15 or sooner, 11, or maybe they start right off in the morning. I forget now. Let me think. 9:30, 11. No, I think it's 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, right? And of course, prior to that, tomorrow morning, we will be doing Blazing Cat Fur Fridays, where we do a cold read-through of Blazing Cat Fur's website, a site that he's been operating for close to 20 years. It is a news aggregate that has been aggregating news that you cannot normally find on your mainstream media website because it is a collection of stories that the mainstream media don't want you to see, which means that their political masters don't want you to see that as well. So let's get this exit on the road. And once again, thank you all if you've waited till the end. And please give us a like, a share, a follow, a subscribe. And we will see you next time.